Jim, do you have any thoughts on what changed? Because if Trump was campaigning like a restrainer, he certainly didn't behave like one once he was inaugurated. I mean, you remember we went right full bore for getting Greenland, going after narco-terrorists, and then in the war with Iran. It just hasn't stopped since then. What was the shift, and was it just easier for Lindsey Graham to get his way because he saw an opening with this new spirit of intervention that Trump seemed to be pursuing?
Well, I think part of the problem is, so one of the reasons why Trump was so successful is he seemed to have hit the sweet spot politically on foreign policy where he didn't want to do wars but was seen as tough. And that was a good balance. It also allowed a lot of Republicans with different foreign policy views, dramatically opposed foreign policy views, to each think that Trump really secretly more or less agreed with them. And that helped keep an unwieldy coalition together for the election. But when you govern, you have to start to make choices. And I think one of the ways in which Trump has sort of gone off the rails in the second term is he has done, and even if you go back to the first term, he did do sort of small, performative military strikes. And while I would question the wisdom and the morality of a number of them, they worked out well enough. And they worked out well enough largely because he confined himself to things that the military can actually do, not really any nation building or democracy promotion, and that he also knew when to quit when he was maybe not if ahead, at least a little bit less behind. Like he abandoned the stuff with the Houthis, and I think he really would like to get out of Iran at this point. But he got in, and I think the success, relatively speaking, or at least the non-disastrousness, the non-catastrophic nature of some of his smaller interventions, convinced him that the difference between himself and, say, George W. Bush or Lyndon Johnson was just that he was smarter and he knew how to manage these things better. Whereas his actual wisdom was that he understood that a lot of what we did, particularly in the Middle East, since the end of the Cold War, has been ill-advised and not worked out well. And so that was his real source of wisdom, and he kind of abandoned that by thinking, well, I'm just a better manager of these conflicts. And while he will never admit it, I suspect, based on how he's behaved in the last few weeks, he kind of knows that maybe that's not really true in Iran right now, that these things can't just really be managed away, that if you're going to try to do something of a George W. Bush scale, you're going to end up with George W. Bush-like results.
Yeah. So, Jack, just taking off on what Jim had suggested, that there is a hole now where Lindsey Graham stood in this inner orbit of the Trump administration, encouraging these interventions and aggressive policies, particularly in the Middle East, that this might be an opportunity for restrainers. Is there any figure that you can identify that is equally as politically astute that could fill that gap? Now, many would say that J.D. Vance was primed for that role. He is in an administration where, to me, seems to be outnumbered. But do you see an opening like Jim had suggested?
I'm a little confused about what we're talking about. Are we talking about who's in Trump's ear, who gets to be the new maniac neocon in the two different roles? It could be anybody. I mean, people who know much more than I, in my limited knowledge, Trump listens a lot to the last person. We've seen that over, a term and a half now, and I liked it a lot more when he was listening to Rand Paul. J.D. Vance, if his his influence, I think that would be a welcoming thing. In the Senate, Ted Cruz is positioning himself to be the old Bush Cheney old guard decides to run for president in 2020. The Senate, I don't know if he's going to amp up his rhetoric. But yeah, J.D. Vance having more influence with Trump would. Well, I don't think he wanted to go into Iran. President, your president did. So what you going to do?